Well, good morning to you, everybody, from me. My name is Stuart. Some of you I've met many times, some I haven't met before. I live on the other side of the estuary in the village of Borth and was formerly rector of Aberystwyth for 25 years, so now in retirement and coming frequently here to Abu Dhabi. Simon, whom you probably know, the lay pastor here, and his wife are away on holiday, which is lovely for them. I'm responding this morning in my preaching to a request to preach on what happens after death. So taking Hugh's challenge very, very seriously this morning, that we have not just been saved for the next life, but also for this life. Nonetheless, this morning I've been asked specifically to address this subject. So I'm not neglecting the important emphasis that Hugh brought to us earlier. So then a rather personal question to you this morning, perhaps inappropriate for Easter Sunday, but I'll ask it just the same. Are you the kind of person who helps themselves to a sweet from the sweet tin, and after you have unwrapped it, very tidily put the wrapper back into the tin? Now, I'm not going to ask you to raise a hand, but I can see some fingers being inappropriately pointed. Now, this is an entirely hypothetical question. I'm just trying to make a point. But if you were to go to the cupboard and find that the lid of the tin of sweets had been taken off and still on the shelf alongside it, and that the tin was full of wrappers only, what would you think? I would think the grandchildren have come to stay. Skullduggery is what I would think. On Easter Sunday morning, some of the women who had been followers of Jesus went to the tomb where he had been buried on the Friday. So today is Sunday. Yesterday was Saturday, the day before was Friday, and they had witnessed his body being wrapped up in grave clothes, put on a shelf inside this stone-cut tomb, and left there, and then a huge stone rolled across it. That's what they had seen on Friday. On Sunday, when they arrived, they found that the stone had been rolled away and that the tomb was empty apart from the grave clothes. So the lid had been taken off and the wrappings remained, but Jesus had gone. That's the history of Easter. It's what we've come to recall today. Something is going on. Just a couple of weeks before the events of Jesus' crucifixion, he took his men disciples to one side, 12 of them, and he said to them confidentially, he said, you and I, are going to Jerusalem. Everything that is written by the prophets about the Son of Man, about me, is going to be fulfilled. Me, will be delivered to the Gentiles, that's the Romans, people who are not Jews. They will mock him, insult him, spit on him, flog him, kill him, and on the third day he will rise again. They did that on the Friday. They mocked him, insulted him, spat on him, flogged him, killed him on the Friday. But on the Sunday, he had risen again. Something was going on. Jesus had been raised from the grave just as he had predicted in advance. The lid was off, only the wrappings remained. Jesus was alive, and he is alive. Now, this event proves 4 massive truths, and I want to give them to you in order today. Here's the first massive truth. There is survival beyond death. 300 years ago, there was a man by the name of Johann Joachim Becker. He was a kind of scientist, the kind of scientist that was around at that time. They called him an alchemist. Becker came up with a theory. And the theory was to explain why some things burn and some things don't burn. And his theory was this, that the things that burn contain a substance called phlogiston. Now, do you know that is about the only thing that I can remember from my science lessons in school? Phlogiston. It's got a kind of taste to it, that word, hasn't it? Well, that was his theory. It was his best guess. And Joachim Becker was completely and absolutely and utterly wrong. It was a best guess, but it was a wrong guess. Now, there are some people today who will tell you this. They will say, when you are dead, you are dead. So what lies beyond for us when we die is annihilation. We cease to exist. That is their best guess. And their best guess is wrong. And the proof that we have that it is wrong is in the resurrection of Jesus. During his lifetime, Jesus brought back at least 3 people from the dead. One of them was a daughter of a man called Jairus. We know his name and we know where he lived. He lived in a place called Capernaum, right on the edge of the Sea of Galilee. You can visit Capernaum today. The other person that Jesus raised from the dead was an unnamed lad, son of an unnamed woman who lived in the village of Nain, which is close to Nazareth, and you can visit it today. And the third person that Jesus raised from the dead was a man called Lazarus, who, before he died, lived with his sisters Martha and Mary in a village called Bethany, close to Jerusalem, and you can visit the village today. And he raised all 3 of those, the young woman, the young man, and Lazarus, an older man, all from the grave. Now that is not entirely unusual. You can read of thousands of people who have died today and who have been resuscitated by doctors in hospital. And they'll tell you their experiences. These are called near-death experiences. It is not unusual. What's particularly unusual about one of these 3 is that Lazarus had been dead for 4 days before Jesus raised him from the dead. But for all of these 3 people that Jesus raised from the dead, it was not a resurrection, it was a resuscitation. And each one of those 3 had to go through the disappointment of dying a second time. Whereas Jesus was raised from the dead and has never died again, nor will he ever. Because resurrection is different to resuscitation. Resuscitation brings me back. Oh, I'm alive again. But then I die again. But resurrection brings me back. I'm alive again, never to die ever again. And Jesus made this incredible claim. He said he was the one who would bring that kind of resurrection, and he would give it as a gift to those who belong to him. This is what he said. He said, I am the resurrection and the life. Not the resuscitation. I am the resurrection and the life. Listen now. He says, he who believes in me will live even though he dies. He will live even though he dies. There will be survival. We will die, but there will be survival. We will have life beyond life. Whoever lives and believes in me will never die, said Jesus. We'll have life, and then there will be a step into life. He's saying each one who belongs to me is guaranteed survival. And the non-Christian world outside says this is fantasy land. It's the comforting best guess of the Christian. No, it is not. The tomb was empty. And then there were a series of appearances of this resurrected Jesus, one after another to his disciples. And over the centuries, Jesus has continued to come to people right up until today. There is survival. Here's the second important truth from the resurrection of Jesus. There is transformation after death. Nowhere in the Bible does anybody ask in public, so far as we know, the $64,000 question, what is it like to be dead? So far as we know, nobody in the Bible asked. They didn't ask Jairus' daughter, they didn't ask the widow of Nain's son, they didn't ask Lazarus, so far as we know. And nobody asked Jesus either, what's it like to be dead? Nobody needed to ask Jesus that question because after his resurrection, he was a living example of what it is like after you have died. Jesus demonstrated by his resurrection what it is like to go through that transforming experience, to have life followed by life. So when Jesus meets up with